I wanted to show you how to do the linear regression and hopefully a residual plot using your Casio graphing calculator. And this will work with the 9860 and I think also the 9750. That we're looking at there's a TI tips on page 177 in the textbook that tells us what to do, and the data is on page 142 on another TI tips. I want to show you guys how to get. I'll show you the whole process. So we're gonna go into stat. So let's go in there. And then we're supposed to rename the list to YR for year, so we'll do that. And the other list is supposed to be TUIT for tuition. And honestly, I don't know that it matters whether you put those names, but we'll do it for now just to be proper and to follow along with the textbook. And then for years on page 142, it says it's all the years from 1990 to 2000. But it says don't enter years. It says pretend like 1990 is year 0. So here's 0, and then we'll do next we'll do one. Oops. Let's see here. There we go. So then 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then 5, then 6, then 7, 8, then 9, then finally 10. Okay, so that's all the years, and then we'll enter the tuition, and I'm going to do that real quick while you're not watching. Here we go. One thing you're going to want to make sure of after you enter all your data is make sure that the two bottom numbers line up. If for some reason you missed a number and they don't line up, then you're going to get an error, and that could be the problem. So always come back here and check your data. Now that we got the X list in and the Y list, the years are going to be X and tuition's going to be Y from the TI tips on page 142. Let's go ahead and see if we can get a scatter plot of this data. The way we'll do that is we'll go into the graph, so you'll hit F1. And then we're going to go ahead and set the graphs to what we want them to be. So let's hit set. And we can set either graph 1 or graph 2 or graph 3. Again, just hit these function buttons. We're going to set graph 1. And we'll set the type to scatter plot. Hey, it's already done for us, yay. And it looks like it's already set up for our X values to be in list 1 and our Y values to be in list 2. And that's cool because that's where we put them. So I'm going to go ahead and see if I can back out. Let's go back up to graph. And then I think we actually hit graph. Oh no, we're going to hit exit. Okay, and so now that we've got graph 1 set up, now we can go and click F1 to see graph 1. So there we go. So there's our scatter plot. That's beautiful. And again, we're on page 177 for the TI tips for how to do a line of regression. For you guys with the Casio, it's really easy. Now that you've got the graph there, see the calc on the screen? You're going to hit F1. And then you've got choices of which kind of regressions you want to do. You can do like a quadratic regression or a cubic regression, or if you hit this X, F2, you're going to do a linear regression. So let's hit F2. And then you've got a choice of two kinds of linear regression, either AX plus B or A plus BX. Same thing. The only difference is in one of them, A is the slope and B is the y-intercept, and the other one, it's the other way around. No big deal. I'm going to go ahead and do the AX plus B, so let's go ahead and hit F1. First of all, it gives you what the slope is. A in this case is 326. It gives you what the y-intercept is. B is 6439. It calculates R, the correlation coefficient, for you. And remember, that is a number that tells us how strongly how likely the data is to be correlated and linear. You know, how strong is the correlation? And again, you can see at the top of the screen, you can see that it's AX plus B, so you'll be sure you know what A is and what B is. Now, if we want to add this line to our scatter plot, let's go ahead and choose Draw. Again, F6, and now you've got your line of best fit on your data. And we use the line of best fit on the scatter plot is that's one way to help us determine whether a linear model is appropriate for the data. The other thing we do is we look at the R value for correlation, and then the third thing we'll do is to look at the residual plot. So let's do it. So to get a residual plot for this data, we're going to need to calculate the residuals of all the points that we have. And I'm just going to remind you guys that a residual is just the actual y value minus the predicted y value. If we go back and we look at all of the data that we have, that we entered, these are our actual y values. The tuition are our actual y values. On the line itself is where all the predicted y values are. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to make a list of residual values, and we'll have to enter them in here. And give me a minute, and I'll see if I can explain how to do that. Now, I think doing a residual plot is a little bit easier for you on the Casio than it is for the folks with the TIs. To do a residual plot, you'll go and hit Shift and then Menu for Setup, Shift Setup. And then you'll see that the second option is Resid List, and it now says None. So you're going to go ahead and choose List, and then it'll ask you which list would you like the residuals in. Well, we're already using list 1 and 2, so put 3 here and then hit Enter, and that should be good. And unfortunately, you'll see that there's no residuals there. So we're going to have to go back, and we're going to go and regraph this stuff. So hit Graph. Hit Graph 1 again, and then do Calc again, and then do the X for linear, and do AX plus B. And now that we've run the linear regression with residuals turned on, when we go back and look at our list, there should be all the residuals. So now what we'll do is we'll set up a plot that has year as our X value and residuals as our Y value, and that'll give us our residual plot, just like we wanted to do in the TI tips. So let's take a look. So graph 2, or let's go to Set, and we'll go and we'll make graph 2 will now be, because graph 1 we want to leave it as the scatter plot of the actual data, but in graph 2 we'll leave the X list as list 1, but the Y list will now be different. Let's go ahead and choose list 3 to be our Y list. That's the residuals. And then let's go ahead and now we can go back, and now if we want to do graph 2, we will see the residual plot, and if you take a look, you'll see it looks an awful lot like the picture in the book on page 178 in the textbook under the TI tips. So now you know how to do the line of regression, you know the linear regression, you know how to do the scatter plot, you know how to do the residual plot, and now we can really easily switch back and forth between the two graphs. There's your you know, scatter plot of the original data. We can go ahead and throw the line of best fit on top of that if we want to, or we can go back and easily look at the residual plot of the data. I'd like you to try that out on your own, and let me know if you have any questions.